I don't know if you've noticed around where you're at, but I've noticed in my area there's been a very pretty large spike in sickness here lately. Most of it the flu, I believe. A little bit of RSV for some of that other stuff, but there's been a pretty high concentration of sick people, at least here where I'm at in Iowa. I got me thinking, so I got to thinking about it a little bit, and um, we shut down the economy for almost for a good year in 2020, for over a year, trying to fight the COVID pandemic, which really wasn't nearly as bad as everyone tried to make it sound. There's a lot of people in the government tried to make it sound like it actually was, but anyway. During that time, if you looked at the CDC statistics for sickness and specifically like flu, there was basically no flu, no reported flu cases in the United States. Now, there's that seems a little sketchy, should anybody, but COVID kind of killed the flu, so to speak. But now, the flu is back, and probably worse than it has been in quite some time. Statistically speaking, COVID, especially for those under the age of I think 40, is COVID was very, very weak, very unscary for those under the age of 40 years old, specifically. Even the majority, especially healthy people under the age of 40. Now, there was some deaths from some relatively healthy people that were, a little older, 50s and 60s. I know a few people in my area that, were relatively healthy, that were in their 60s, that were, like I said, relatively healthy, but in their 60s that died from COVID. But the majority of the cases of deaths from COVID were not actually the people they were trying to scare. The majority of the cases were the elderly, 70, 60, 70, 80 years old, and older, those that are, the elderly, or those that were already immune compromised. And I'm not saying we shouldn't, try and protect those people. Those are the people that are more vulnerable. But those are also the same people that are more vulnerable to the flu, and always have been more vulnerable to the flu. And we never took these precautions before that were actually just as bad. But now the flu is coming back. I think there's like 3 schools here in Iowa last week that actually closed down because of sickness. I know another school had, I think, over 100 kids out. I know my son has been sick for the last couple weekends. He finally was able to, he finally got over it this last week and was able to finally, participate in his extracurriculars. He likes, he wrestles. So he was finally able to get to his first tournament. We planned on going the last couple weekends to tournaments, and he's finally able to get to one this last weekend. Or actually got to 2 this last weekend because I told him he could go to 2 because he missed the previous. But so we actually finally got to do that. So he'd been sick for the last couple weeks. So basically the shutdowns, we shut down everything for COVID, but we're not shutting things down for the flu or these other stuff. And I'm not saying we should shut down. I'm not at all saying we should shut down. That is the last thing we need to do. But I just want to kind of talk a little bit about, and I wanted to kind of mention that because I believe, and I think a lot of smart people would agree with me, those shutdowns really hurt everybody in the long run. They actually are making us sicker now than they were before, because before, what's one of the best ways to actually, defend against being sick? One of the best ways is a natural immunity, which is, being out in, being exposed to some of these things, so your body can actually build these immunities and build these antibodies that'll actually fight this stuff. We basically sat for 2 years without doing anything, for over a year without doing anything. So now, because of that, where our bodies are actually behind, the 8 ball because of that, and developing these antibodies and these natural immunities. So now people are getting sicker at a higher rate than they were before. So overall, just the biggest thing I want you to take away from this, be very, very, very careful about who you trust, in your government, especially in the government, when they say, we're doing this for your good, for your own good, because honestly, that has never happened in history. Hitler said he was taking away the guns, taking away people's rights to defend themselves for their own good. And how'd that work out? Ask anybody that knows actually any truth about the history. Anytime a government says we're doing this for your own good, it's never for your own good. It is for their power. Remember that before you agree the next time somebody says we're doing this for your own good, because it's not.